Welcome to another CEO Wisdom podcast. Today with us is Raphael Rosen. Raph is a CEO and co-founder at Centinel. He's a partner with commercial real estate owners. Yeah, he partners with commercial real estate owners to reduce operating costs and rebate half the savings. He's a writer on American civil society and values. I found that quite interesting. And he's author of Pedestals. So Raph, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Charles. It's great to be here. Like you said, Centinel is my big focus. Been doing that for 15 years now, helping partner with landlords to make them a whole bunch of money by splitting savings between them and their tenants. So doing that in more than $1 billion worth of assets, helping them there. And then as far as work on civil society, also been a lifelong passion of mine, writing, reading, researching, speaking, and fun things like that.
Right. And Centinel itself, you started that 15 years ago. You didn't exited yet. What's your plan with that one? Is it just cash flow producing? And at this point, you have no plans of selling it?
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey. So we bootstrapped it from nothing. My co-founder and I, we did that for about 5 years. And then we got to a place where we could raise capital. So we raised a whole bunch of capital to scale it up. I can certainly share stories of hard-won lessons from doing that. And so then we scaled it up for about 5 years. And then 2020 pandemic came, and the whole business model that it relied on that I'd had concerns about proved to have real concerns. And we had to completely transform the company really into a tech-first company, which had been the dream all along. It was an interesting, fun journey, painful at many times to get there. But that's what we do. So it's been a 15-year adventure.
How was that pivot? How painful was it? And did you succeed at climbing the huge mountain in 2020?
Yeah, it was extremely painful. For our whole history as a company, we'd never had to lay off a single person. We were really careful in how we hired and how we managed everything. And with 2020, at that point we'd scaled to about 150 people. We had about a $20 million run rate, and then all of a sudden hit this wall where all of our clients were owners of office buildings, which were now closed. We used to fly people around the United States, which we could no longer do. And that whole sector, even 5 years later, I think is finally bottoming out. The office sector, but it's been just a brutal ride for that sector, which meant for us basically having to start over and say, okay, what are we good at? What can we really deliver a lot of value at? And that is always a really painful process, especially when it means, having to take apart a lot of what you spent the last 10 years putting together.
So did you needed a capital injection to survive that pivot? Did you raise additional capital?
Yeah, we raised a little bit of additional capital, which was useful to get us to profitability where we are today. But it was, if only I'd had that experience before starting Centinel, we would have done it a lot faster and smoother and better than it took us many years. What I think, knowing what I know now, we could have done in a couple months.
And did most of your clients stay with you, or did you had a huge churn event around that time?
Yeah, most of our clients stayed with us in some form or another. So the business model used to be one-time revenue heavy, and we pivoted to a recurring model. And so a lot of the clients pivoted with us to that recurring model. But even so, leaving behind all that one-time revenue was a big shift for the company, as you might imagine.
And how did that affect you mentally? How did your mindset change around that time?
Yeah, fun question. I think the mindset, I'd always had a part of my mind that was really excited about recurring revenue. And every entrepreneur I've admired and learned from and looked from, almost all of them have always beaten the drum. Recurring revenue, find it wherever you can. And that always seemed nice, but it didn't seem practical from when we started the business to where the demand was, which was basically consulting. People wanted to pay us a chunk of money to give them some information. Later as a chunk of money to help them complete a project to improve their building. But the recurring piece was never quite fitting. And had I known now what I knew, back then, I certainly would have just said, all right, let's just figure it out anyway. Let's find something that people want for that recurring revenue stream. But being forced to shift because of the pandemic and the collapse in demand for that upfront product is necessity, the mother of invention.
And what's your default philosophy in these times? Is it stoicisms, for example?
I certainly appreciate stoicism. I mean, I have Marcus Aurelius right here on my desk. I'm a big fan of that, of many elements of that worldview. But yeah, I certainly embrace, we only control a tiny, tiny amount. And so being able to flow with the rest is sage advice.
Or in your case, I think would be more accurate to say men in the arena, Theo Roosevelt, right?
Yeah, certainly man in the arena is another philosophy that I hold to very strongly. May as well at least give it your best shot. If you don't, you'll always regret it.
Like, why are you studying these guys? I have a background in political science myself, and certainly a fan of Plato, Aristotle, even Nietzsche sometimes. Like, why do you study politics and history like you do? How do you transition or transpose that passion into business and into money ultimately?
Yeah, fun question. I don't know that I have solved it, but I can say I think it all starts at the same place, which is really gratitude, and a profound sense of gratitude since I was a kid for on the environmental side for national parks and public spaces is what drives me to focus on Centinel and build a business that will significantly help protect our planet. I think similarly, a deep sense of gratitude for getting to live in a free society is something that a lot of people for most of human history never had. And so that deep sense of gratitude drives me to these texts to try to learn from them, to certainly do my part to be the best I can be for society, for community, for country, for all those things. So it all starts with that gratitude, and it flows to how can we help our customers who own real estate, who therefore control a lot of pollution? How can we make this a great outcome for them? And one of their, it's reading Marcus Aurelius or Aristotle, any of them. How can we apply that to today? How can we learn from that? How can we make ourselves and our communities and countries the best places that they can be?
And why is freedom important to you? Like, who are your parents, your ancestors? Did they have that freedom that you have today?
Nowhere even close. Most of my immediate ancestors come from sort of Eastern Europe, Pale settlement before that, from Israel, presumably all descended from slaves in Egypt, like much people in the Middle East at some point enslaved by the Egyptians. And so that long history and lack of control over your destiny, lack of control over what you get to do is always on my mind.
Is that why you started a business? VS, most of your peers going into fancy banking and staying there?
It fascinated me in college, even when I started. And I was at Harvard, I was fortunate to be around a lot of really bright, motivated people. How many of them just wanted to do what everyone else was doing, which was to go into banking or consulting and later tech. And some of them made complete sense to me. They came from poor families and they had a great opportunity, and that seemed great. And they've done well for themselves, and that's wonderful. But 90% of them were doing it just because everyone else around them was doing it, because it had prestige. And that didn't resonate with me at all. And I think I'm grateful for certainly, obviously, the opportunities I had, but really the mindset. Even my grandfather, who's an immigrant, when he came to America, he always focused on do what you love and do what matters to you and do what's fulfilling. And my dad could have done many things with his career, but he focused on public service and basic science research because that's what he loved. So really lucky to have those examples of go find what you love, go do it, go make it happen. It doesn't matter how hard it is. In some ways, the harder, the better. Just go make it happen.
And freedom of speech, I obviously value freedom of speech, but it seems like some individuals are taking it too far nowadays. I believe not everything should be said, especially if you have influence, right? It can hurt some people. It can lead some people in the wrong direction. When and where can freedom be taken so far? And do you have examples of this with our modern times?
Yeah, fun question. There's a famous saying, liberty is not license, right? License is the right to do whatever you want in any way, shape, or form. And if we're going to live with other people, obviously we can't just do whatever we want all the time because it's going to in some way harm lots of other people. People who have leadership responsibilities, people who have followings, they have a way different bar to be held to than ordinary citizens. My perspective, an ordinary citizen, right? They're not in a position of political power or other type of power. Like, say whatever they want. It can be as hateful as they believe it to be. I don't like hearing it, but I respect their right to and want to protect their right to say it. Folks who are in positions of leadership, I think, to your point, it can cause enormous harm. And I think the integrity of leaders matters a lot. And I think within our society, we tend to have relatively low integrity leaders, especially on the political front. And that leads us to where we are today, where people are trying to score points in order to get funding or to get followers or get likes or all these things that don't actually benefit society. It just benefits, the politicians and their or other leaders and their narrow self-interest.
And in that case, is it like, don't blame the player, blame the game? Do you like, if you and I, we have following, but like not Elon big or Trump big, for example. Do you think we would be corrupted by that? Like, let's say that I can post something and move markets and make like 10 million in one post. Would we do it or not? That's a pretty fair question to ask.
Yeah. I believe it's always blame the player, not the game. You can certainly feel frustrated with the game. You can hate the game. You can hate the way that things work, and that totally your prerogative to do. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings for making decisions. We can decide whether to do the thing that has integrity, or we can decide to do the thing that gets us a whole, $10 million by making that post. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm saying it's our responsibility to make the right choice.
But if your audience, let's say you're governing the US, right? Most of the US and any country in the world, it's NPC type of people that can be convinced in the clap of fingers. And your goal is to win an election, and your goal is to serve these people in the end. So are they feeding and electing the people that say these bad things? Like, that's why I'm saying sometimes it's the actual game. Sometimes it's the electoral system that needs to be changed. In my opinion, sometimes it's the actual platform, right? X and Facebook, for example, the rules need to be changed. The incentives need to be changed so that the players can play because the rules on these platforms, they're none, like there's no rules. You can almost say anything that you like. In a football game, everyone will play the same and will be penalized if they break these rules. So that's why I'm saying I'm more of a proponent to change the actual game than the player. Of course, like, the player should hold themselves ethically. I think there are devastating consequences when you become that way, right? Like, your family sort of outcast you and your community, and you really have no one to turn to, and you turn into like a megalomaniac sort of monster. But I do think that for humanity, for countries as well, like the rules of the game need to be changed to actually level the playing field, and so that we can have leaders that have more integrity, which in my opinion is essential to serve better people. What do you think about that?
If the rules of the game could be changed effectively to make them level the playing field, 100% agree. I don't think that is I don't think that's the ideal answer. I'll put it that way. I think the ideal answer is people make all of our problems. People are the ones supporting, enthusiastically responding to the vitriol and the invective and all the terrible things people say. And people are ones voting for those positions. And so the question is, how can you get people to change? And to some extent, it's impossible to get people to change. We don't like to change. But I don't think that excuses us from holding ourselves responsible, holding fellow citizens responsible. If people are responding aggressively to misinformation, and people responding to lies, like, that's no different than the way it's always been. It's always been that way. People always get whipped up and excited by demagogues and other leaders and populists. Like that. That's not going to change. What can change is, what do individuals do? What do individuals share? What do individuals believe? How do we treat each other? Do we live the values that we say, or do we just give lip service to those values? And that's a lot harder, because that's your everyday action. It's your everyday thought. But that's the change that I think is worth fighting for and advocating for.
I think you change these individuals by making the rules, right? And in history, we've seen, yeah, for example, Plato and in the time of Plato, democracy come over. That wasn't a thing back then. That was an innovation. That was because a hero stepped up. Yes, an individual, but a very incredible kind of individual that went like, oh, maybe if we take a decision together, then we have a better decision. I think if we also talk briefly about democracy back then, it was maybe 100 people, right? I think democracy starts yielding diminishing returns when there's way too many folks, like communities that are so different from one another that vote. It sort of blurs the decision, but I still believe in the wisdom of crowd. So in my opinion, I think we need someone to be elected, right, and be like, yo, let's change the game of let's change the rules of the game so that it's fair for next elections, so that it's better for other citizens. And same for Facebook. If we get outrage out there, is because the platform is being designed to pop that post in your feed. It's not necessarily that this individual is angry all the time and is just a bad person. Is that the feed is made to constantly pop aggressive shit in their feed. And we know that when people are out work, when they're burning out, they don't have a brain really. They just want like instant serotonin and instant gratification. So they sort of fall into that trap. Even I fall into that trap sometimes. It's like bad habits, right? Like, why should I watch YouTube shorts instead of doing a deep research on ChatGPT and getting like real good and clean info that I can monetize on? And I constantly need to bring myself back on track. So now picture me like with a different background, right? Like with less brain, less emotional control, like a 12 or 15 hour day at the factory, for example. Then you get like a snappy version of me that will only propagate. And that's the last piece, right? Once someone gets angry at that post, they propagate it to their own communities, and then they create their own sour community. Eventually it forges into their identity and it solidifies in who they actually are. So I'll disagree with your point. I really much think it's like blame the game and actually change the rule of the games. I don't think individuals have the power nowadays with porn, TikTok, and all of that to actually get themselves out of that hole.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective a lot. I think certainly technology, whether it's social media, is designed for exactly those things, right? It's designed to take advantage of those circuits in our brain that want that serotonin hit. And it would be great for it to be changed, and by all means, we should all advocate for it to be changed. I think going back to your comment about the Greeks, I don't think it's really, the heroic person who comes forward. If you look at, early Greek society with these hoplite soldiers who come together, like they have agency and they have freedom because they're needed. That society is only going to be strong if every, yeoman farmer, the individuals come together. And so you have these small scale democracies that work because everyone needs each other. And the founders of America knew well that, that 1,000 person democracy, it's not going to scale very well across an entire continent. And so they had to make systems and changes to systems. But at the end of the day, what was going to make it work was always going to be the culture and the norms of the people. And I think when you have a culture where people take responsibility, when people feel that they matter, that's great. And whatever we can do, change the rules of the game to get people to feel that they matter, change the way we treat each other to get people to feel that they matter, all of that ends up leading to a better outcome.
I think an interesting twist in society, you've probably tested AI agents in your company as well, would be to have rights for AIs and AI agents, and for AI agents to actually vote. And this may sound controversial, but I do think an AI agent is actually a smarter voter than probably 99% of people out there. If you give them a specific profile, right? Like give them the same profile as I don't know, Farmer Sam in Midwest America, right? Like, but also give them the full information of what Farmer Sam would actually vote for their best benefit. I do think that that could mean something, and that AI agent would be a productive member of society, generating income, generating probably UBI. What do you think of that futuristic system?
Yeah, it's a fun scenario to imagine. I think when I think about the rights of citizenship and therefore the right to vote, it has to be paired with the responsibilities of citizenship. And so when you see arguments, for should chimpanzees have certain rights? Well, the problem and the shortcoming of that is chimpanzees don't have any responsibilities. And so similarly for AI, has this awesome calculator effectively that's able to take in huge amounts of information and then spit out what it thinks the next thing should be. They have this ability to produce interesting, valuable things. But do they have any responsibilities? And maybe there's a world in which AI does get responsibilities. I think if they have responsibilities and rights, then logically what you're saying would make sense. But I don't see any responsibilities, at least for now, that are being expected of an AI agent.
Are you happy with what the administration did in your own field, in your own segment so far? Is that like productive? The new laws they've adopted?
Which specific laws are you referring to?
Yeah, I'm asking if there has been, for example, there's been like the tariffs that have been quite disastrous so far. Has that affected you, or has there been political decisions in your field that have affected you positively or adversely?
Yeah, no, for me personally, as well as for Centinel, I haven't been affected by administration policy changes. I know certainly people within environmental companies and other startups who depend on government incentives have been affected, but as we've been designed to not be affected by those and not depend on any government incentives, we haven't felt any direct impact for that. Within the real estate sector, there's certainly been a lot of reactions, and their biggest priority is always interest rates and hoping interest rates come down. Tariff costs, of course, are a big impact, especially for new developers. Immigration crackdown is also a negative impact for developers. So I see within real estate, it's a pretty mixed bag for them in terms of the consequences of various changes this year.
And is it still affordable to rent in the US, in New York, for example, nowadays? Like if you put yourself in the shoes of someone that lives in an apartment there, is there like a housing crisis? How's that going?
Yeah, there's way too little housing that gets built for a huge variety of reasons. And there's an enormously complex web of regulations about housing pricing. So the actual median apartment in New York City costs about $1,600 a month. But if you were to try to go on the market and rent someplace, you'd be paying 3 times that. And that's because 1 million housing units are all heavily restricted with rent control laws and other things. And the instinct of some politicians to double down on rent regulation, all of that does is just drive developers away. And so you get less housing abundance. Everything else just becomes more expensive. So yes, there's a huge housing crisis. There's been housing deficits in America for 50 years now. We just need to build a lot more housing for all the people who want to live.
There you go. Thanks for being on today, Raf. Where can people find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, so sentinelre.com is where you can find out about what we do. We're always looking for landlords to partner with to help drive new income to you. And then for my own work, my Substack is Lady Liberty's Pedestal on American civil society.
That was Raf and Charles for